Emergency services. What's your emergency?
It's Daniel! He's gone! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Sir, please take a breath. Who is Daniel?
We found a snake! A python! It's massive! You won't believe this!
What do you mean, a python? What about it?
It's so big! And there's something inside it! Oh Jesus! There's something shaped like a man!
Sir, are you saying the snake has?
It's him! I know it's him! We can see his boot, his leg, oh god! It's Daniel!
Stay where you are. Do not approach the animal. Officers and medics are on their way right now.
Hurry! Please, just hurry!
This is a story so terrifying it almost feels like something out of a Hollywood thriller. But every haunting detail you're about to hear is brutally real. It speaks to one of humanity's oldest fears, the kind that hides in the dark edges of the wild. The fear of being hunted, cornered, and finally, consumed. Imagine this one moment you're part of the world, your life moving forward in familiar rhythms. The next you vanish. No screams, no struggle, just gone. And then the awful discovery, not a body, not even a trace of clothing, but a massive predator, its belly grotesquely swollen, guarding an unthinkable secret inside. This is the story of Daniel Morel, a young man who met one of nature's most efficient killers, the reticulated python, and lost. So steel yourself. The details are not for the faint of heart. Our story begins in a place where beauty and danger share the same soil, the remote tropical lowlands of West Sulowi, Indonesia. Here, life bends to the will of the sun, the rain, and the work that feeds families. Daniel Morel, just 25 years old, was a son of this land, a farmer, a husband, a man tied by blood and by labor to the soil beneath his feet. Day after day, he worked the palm oil plantations, rows of towering trees, with their fronds whispering secrets in the wind. For outsiders, the jungle was an untamed maze. For Daniel, it was home. He could read the subtle changes in the air, smell the shift before the storm, hear the difference between the harmless rustle of a lizard and the deliberate silence of something bigger. Daniel and his wife Muna lived in a small wooden home with walls that breathed in the heat and the scent of earth. Their bond was quiet but unshakable, built on shared work, shared meals, and a shared understanding of the jungle's dual nature as both provider and predator. The palms were more than a paycheck to Daniel, they were part of who he was. His hands were thick with calluses from the machete's handle. His skin was bronzed by years beneath the relentless tropical sun. He could walk the narrow, root-twisted paths blindfolded and still find his way. The plantation had its soundtrack, cicadas screaming in the heat leaves, shivering in the breeze, and somewhere far off the distant calls of birds you'd never see. This was no tourist stumbling into danger. Daniel knew the risks. He respected them. His days began before dawn with the pale light spilling over the tree line, a simple breakfast, then hours of work beneath a sky that shimmered with heat. Sweat would bead and slide down his back, the air so thick it felt like a second skin. And all the while the jungle watched. But even the most experienced man can underestimate an enemy designed by evolution to be a ghost. The hunter in this story is the reticulated python, Malaopithon reticulatus, the longest snake on Earth. Not just big, colossal. The one that would cross Daniel's path measured nearly 23 feet from head to tail, thick as a grown man's torso, its muscles layered with ancient power. Pythons don't kill with venom. They kill with silent speed and a crushing embrace. They wait coiled patient until the moment is right. Then they strike jaws, clamping down coils, wrapping tighter and tighter with every breath the victim exhales. Bones crack, blood flow stops, air is stolen until the body stills. They are masters of camouflage, patterns of gold, brown, and black melting into the jungle floor. They hunt where the prey is plentiful, and palm oil plantations provide exactly that: rodents, pigs, even monkeys. And in rare, terrible cases, humans. A python's jaws can unhinge its skin stretch to swallow something many times the size of its head. One kill can sustain it for months. The people of West Sulowi know these snakes well. They tell their children to keep close, to walk with sticks, to listen for what isn't making a sound. But sometimes the jungle's warning signs are too quiet, too subtle, or simply ignored in the comfort of routine. This particular python was no young, reckless hunter. It was seasoned, an old predator with the patience of stone. There's no record of it killing a person before Daniel, but the region had seen its share of signs: missing goats, strange drag marks through the dirt, that prickling on the back of your neck when you step outside after dark. The truth is, this story isn't just about one snake. It's about collision between human need and wild territory. The expansion of palm oil farming carves into the rainforest, stripping away habitat and forcing creatures into closer contact with people. Pythons losing their traditional prey turn to what's available. Sometimes tragically, that means us. For years, the balance held. People built homes on stilts. They kept animals penned at night. They worked with a wary respect for what lurked in the undergrowth. But balance is fragile. And on one warm March morning in the year 2017, it shattered. The date was March 25th. The sky was clear, the air heavy with the scent of damp soil from the night's rain. Muna was away visiting her parents, leaving Daniel alone. He woke before sunrise the way he always did. The small wooden table still held last night's rice and vegetables. Outside, the world was quiet, but alive: the hum of insects, the drip of water from broad palm leaves, the occasional wing beat of a bird overhead. Daniel picked up his machete, its blade dulled from weeks of work, but still sharp enough to split the husk of a palm fruit. He stepped onto the dirt path, bare feet, knowing each bend and root, his mind already turning to the day's harvest. What he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that somewhere in the thick shadow between two trees, a body of muscle and scales lay motionless, waiting. The python's body would have been invisible against the mottled light, its tongue tasting the air for the heat of prey. It may have been there all night, coiled in perfect stillness, letting the jungle move around it. To Daniel, it was just another morning. To the python, it was the moment evolution had prepared it for. As Daniel moved deeper into the plantation, the sounds of the village faded, replaced by the quiet thrum of life you can only hear when you stop to listen. He didn't. Not that morning. Not enough. His thoughts might have been on Muna, or the yield he hoped for, or the minor repairs the house needed before the rains came. And so the silent hunter uncoiled. That morning began like every other. But by nightfall, Daniel Morel would not return. And the jungle, indifferent and ancient, would keep its secret until the villagers went looking. Daniel Morel had work to do that morning on the palm oil plantation, a place as familiar to him as his own heartbeat, and the lifeblood of his modest but steady livelihood. He ate a simple breakfast of rice and vegetables, washed it down with lukewarm tea, then reached for his harvesting tools, a well-worn machete, and a specialized hook designed to cut heavy clusters of palm fruit. Pulling on his scuffed work boots, he stepped outside into the thick, humid air of early morning, where the jungle was already beginning to stir. By 6 o'clock, Daniel was on the narrow dirt path leading into the plantation. The scent of damp earth clung to the air, mingling with the sweetness of ripening fruit. The soundscape was alive, a layered symphony of cicadas droning in the treetops, distant bird calls echoing from somewhere deep within the canopy, and the occasional rustle of something unseen moving through the undergrowth. He moved with the smooth, deliberate rhythm of a man whose body had long adapted to this environment, eyes scanning, ears tuned to the faintest disturbances. As the sun climbed higher toward mid-morning, light filtered through the palm fronds in shifting, dappled patterns. The heat grew dense and oppressive, wrapping around him like a heavy blanket. Daniel's work was steady, the swing of his machete rhythmic, the cut of the palm fronds crisp. He was focused, perhaps lost in thought, unaware that somewhere nearby something was watching. Reticulated pythons, especially ones of truly massive size, don't chase their prey. They wait, perfectly still, perfectly hidden. A 23-foot coil of raw muscle could have been lying in the shadows for hours, its mottled scales blending seamlessly with roots, fallen leaves, and shadows. Its patience was a deadly weapon. Daniel, bent to reach for a low-hanging cluster or stretching to cut a high fruit, would have been vulnerable. The strike would have been lightning fast, the python lunging with shocking speed, its jaws clamping down on his leg or torso. And then the coils. In a heartbeat, the snake's body would wrap around him layer upon layer, each loop tightening with mechanical precision. The first crushing pressure would steal his breath, crack his ribs, and send panic flooding his mind. The fight would have been short. Every exhale would give the python a chance to tighten further until breathing became impossible. If Daniel screamed, the sounds would have been swallowed by the thick jungle, muffled and lost in its dense embrace. His struggle, no matter how desperate, would have been powerless against the python's ancient strength. Once Daniel's body went still, the python would begin the slow, terrible ritual of feeding. It might start from the head or from the feet, jaws, unhinging skin, stretching in a grotesque display of biology built for this very act. The sound of tearing fabric would mix with the faint rasp of scales over skin. Inch by inch, the jungle would claim him whole. By late afternoon or perhaps into the early evening, Daniel Morel had vanished from the living world, his remains entombed inside the serpent. The plantation, normally a place of labor and human voices, had become a silent grave. That evening, when Daniel didn't return home, it was immediately noticed. His uncle, who lived nearby, came to check on him and found the house locked, the yard empty. A knot of dread took hold in his chest. Daniel was a man of responsibility. He would never simply disappear. The alarm spread quickly. That night, March the 25th, a small search party formed. Men and women from the village, armed with flashlights and machetes, began combing the edges of the plantation. They called Daniel's name into the darkness, their voices echoing back hollow from the trees. Strangely, the jungle seemed quieter than usual, as if it too was holding its breath. At first light on March the 26th, the search intensified. The police were notified, and soon dozens of villagers who knew every trail and hidden hollow of the plantation joined in. The tension was suffocating. Each snap of a twig or shift in the brush sent hearts racing. Then came the first grim clues: scattered palm fruit lying strangely abandoned. Daniel's harvesting hook discarded in the dirt. One of his boots caked in mud and torn as though wrenched violently from his foot. Hope began to wither, replaced by the sinking certainty that something terrible had happened. Moments later, they found it. Half hidden in a shallow ditch, its massive body swollen and unmoving, was a reticulated python. Its belly bulged unnaturally, its movements sluggish under the weight of whatever it had consumed. As the villagers drew closer, their eyes caught the unmistakable shapes pressed against the stretched scales, indentations that looked horrifyingly like the curve of a human leg, the outline of a boot. Gasps turned to grim silence. There was no doubt now the snake had swallowed Daniel. Driven by grief, rage, and a need for truth, the men surrounded the python. A large blade flashed in the dim light, and with swift, practiced force, they killed it. What came next was both necessary and unbearable. On shaky phone cameras, the moment unfolded. The blade cut a long, deliberate line through the snake's distended belly. The air filled with the sharp, musky scent of reptile, and slowly the scaly skin was peeled back. And then Daniel Morel emerged. Fully clothed, his body curled on his side as if in uneasy sleep, his skin still largely intact. A wound marked his back, likely the place where the python's first strike had landed. Medics and police, already nearby, stepped in to document the scene. There was nothing to be done to save Daniel now. Their job was to bear witness, to gather evidence, and to manage a crowd stricken by shock. The news tore through the village, then the region, and within hours it exploded onto screens worldwide. Footage of the python's belly being cut open went viral, sending waves of horror across the globe. It was a story so surreal that many refused to believe it until they saw the images themselves. The lack of significant decomposition told investigators something crucial. Daniel Morel had been swallowed only hours before he was found. While the full autopsy details never reached the international press, the visual evidence and initial examinations painted the picture with grim clarity. The cause of death was constriction, a python's crushing embrace that robbed him of breath, stilled his heartbeat, and then consumed him whole. The wound on his back matched the kind of strike that begins such an attack. One swift, brutal bite followed by the coils. For many, the most chilling truth wasn't just that he had died, it was that his body had been taken whole into the belly of a living creature. It was a demonstration of nature's quiet, horrifying efficiency. The media storm erupted almost instantly. From New York to London to Tokyo, headlines screamed, "Man swallowed whole by python." Television anchors spoke with hushed disbelief, their voices struggling to reconcile the sheer primal horror of the event with the world of smartphones and city skylines. Wildlife experts were called in to explain the rarity of such incidents, how pythons can and do eat large prey, but an adult human is almost unheard of in documented history. And yet there it was, undeniable, captured on the shaky footage of a villager's phone. This wasn't just a news story, it was a jolt to the human psyche, a reminder that we are not as far removed from nature's food chain as we like to think. Legally, there was nothing to pursue. This was no crime in the human sense, only an act of nature's law. The python had been killed, and with it went any notion of justice the modern world could offer. But for the village, grief was a living thing. Daniel had been well-liked, a dependable worker, a caring husband, a steady friend. His death left an empty space at the center of their community. Conversations turned to vigilance, to how easily humans stray too close to the wild's invisible edge. There were whispers about habitat loss, about how plantations and logging push predators into desperate proximity with people. Yet there was also the quiet acknowledgement that no matter how careful you are, sometimes the wild claims you anyway. Animal welfare groups stepped into the conversation, reminding the public that such attacks are extraordinarily rare, often the result of extreme hunger or the loss of natural prey. But for the millions who had seen the images, the nuance was lost. All they could remember was the vision of a human body inside a snake, a nightmare made real. In the village, life moved forward in a changed rhythm. Some avoided the plantation after dusk. Others carried heavier blades or refused to walk alone. Every rustle in the brush, every ripple in the grass now held weight. The jungle's whispers had taken on a new threatening voice. Internal police reports would record it all in careful language. The massive snake, the intact body, the shock on the faces of those who stood around the ditch. Those who had been there would never need the reports. The memory was carved into their minds. They would tell the story again and again over the years, sometimes in detail, sometimes in hushed, unfinished sentences, but always with the same shiver of disbelief. Daniel Morel's death was not just a grotesque anomaly. It was a collision point between human life and the unbroken laws of the wild, a reminder that for all our buildings, machines, and inventions, we remain vulnerable to the same forces that shaped our earliest ancestors. The wild does not care for our dominance. It moves to its own ancient rhythm, silent until the moment it strikes. And when it does, the price it demands can be everything. So as the palm oil trees sway in the humid Indonesian breeze, the villagers know the truth. Somewhere beyond the edges of the cleared fields, predators still wait. Ancient hunters, older than memory, patient as the earth itself. They wait for the wrong step, the single moment of human distraction, the chance to reclaim their place at the top of the food chain. And in that shadowed, unseen world, we are not masters. We are prey,